Hello and welcome to another video. This is going to be a little bit different. We're going to just sit and talk, I guess, about the meta and possible nerfs to certain cards. Obviously this video is going to be completely my opinion, and basically having an opinion doesn't mean it's wrong or right, but these are just some possible options I could see them going with for possible nerfs to cards, and what the biggest problem in certain decks are to me. So we'll start with the first and probably easiest deck being Mid Shadow. So I personally view Mid Shadow as probably one of the most meta toxic decks at the moment. So it's strong, no other aggro deck can keep up, meaning that Shadow's basically the only decent aggro deck to play right now when it comes to being competitive in that kind of regard. And I view the biggest problem to that being Catacomb. A lot of people will say Hector is probably the biggest problem because of the way it functions and the way it always closes out games, but I think the setup from Catacomb is what makes Hector so big. So a 1-2-3 Catacomb setup is an extra 3 shadows on top of your normal 3 shadow count from those 3 followers to begin with. So that's 6 on turn 3 you have possible shadow gain, which is pretty damn crazy, honestly. So looking at that, taking those 6, you can easily go into a Death's Breath and anything you gain before Death's Breath. So your Catacomb count for shadows can usually be somewhere in the range of 10 to 12 by turn 6, turn 7 on a average draw in a lot of cases, which I just think is too fast. Those shadows being used for things like Hector and Death's Breath, creating that massive combo, is just an insane way to gain tempo. Plus, having all the skeletons pop out of Catacomb creates more bodies. More bodies are harder to deal with, so other aggro decks can't keep up at all. Control decks also struggle because they're using all of their earlier removal to try and remove all of Catacomb's things, and that just becomes really difficult for any deck to really deal with, outside of maybe the Haven decks that I've been messing around with, but even then the matchups aren't perfect. The next thing to look at will be possible ways to fix Catacomb. Personally, I think going with a Necromancy nerf is probably the best way to do it, so making them cost shadows. I've thought of a couple different ways to do that, whether you just make the cost of the shadows a outright 3 or 4, so to activate the whole effect. So this way you're not affecting the effect, you're not changing its stats, and you're not affecting anything else. So the card itself will stay the way it is, but it will be slowed down enough that other decks can keep up a little bit more. So the other option for Necromancy is to make it 1 Necromancy per follower it's affecting, and the follower that gain it would be random. So you play Catacomb, you spend say 3 Necromancy because you have 3 other followers on board, and it can hit any of those 3 followers and itself, I would say probably the better way to do it, randomly. So you're going to get 3 out of the 4 things on board to have Catacomb's effect. That way, you need the shadows in the beginning of the game, meaning the best bet you're going to have is the 2-drop shadow card that gives you 1 shadow on Fanfare, meaning that you're going to get a 2-3 combo at the best, and you're only going to get 1 Catacomb, Catacomb skeleton out of it. I think that would balance the card. Yes, it would not be able to be played the way it is now. It would probably be played in a more mid-range, late game-ish build, where you're trying to generate shadows more on turn 4, turn 5, not turn 1 through 3. That way you can use Hector a little bit later instead of dropping it from 6 to 7 combo straight away, which I view as probably the problem right now. Catacomb sets up for a really early aggro. This way you won't have to hit Hector, you don't have to change Death's Breath or any of those other cards, you only affect Catacomb as 1 single card, and hopefully that would be enough to slow the card down. Another few people I've talked to have discussed changing Catacomb's cost and its stats, and maybe not letting it give it summon a skeleton to itself, but I don't view that as a really good option. Taking away its primary effect of summon skeletons would be a real pain, so you can't really change anything there. Its stat change would be a really difficult thing to manage, maybe making it 0 attack, but that just doesn't sit right either because it doesn't really change anything overall. Upping its cost to say 4 or 5 would fix the curve problem, but I think that would probably break the card well beyond recognition, and then you wouldn't be able to use it on any late game combos either because it would cost too much by that point. If you made it 5, you can't combo with Death's Breath at all. If you made it 4, then you do get to combo, but not till turn 10. I think doing it the way I wanted with the Necromancy, maybe 1 per follower, you can kind of try to work it into an aggro variant, but at the same time it's going to be slower than it is now, thus balancing the deck out enough that it would be half decent. So that being one of the few cards, the other card is... I think that's how you spell. No, I'm really bad at spelling G's. Come on, guys. What am I doing here? Let's see. We'll just go to Legendaries and go to Dragon then. That'll solve it. Dragon being the other strongest deck in the game, primarily because of its ramp. So standard ramp Dragon. The biggest problem I have with this deck, personally, is syibl. You gain an extra play point on the 5th turn or later. You're pretty much guaranteed to gain the play point. There's no chance you're playing this without that effect. At the end of turn, restore 3 defense to your leader if Overflow is active, so the play point literally feeds straight into its secondary ability, and it gains a 2/2 boost to its stats on Evolve. So there was a lot of discussion the other day with a few people about what we could probably do with this card. I don't see them hitting a legendary personally, although this is probably the only card I can see Champ Dragon. Maybe hitting Shadow would make Dragon less good because other decks that counter Dragon by Shadow, but we won't know that until we really see a change. Basically, on turn 40, healing effect with the play point orb ramp is fucking crazy. You're nearly guaranteed to at least once. You're going to guarantee the healing effect, plus effect, healing for 3, and gain 4, 5. In most cases, you're evolving it, so Send Body, which we mostly discussed, aren't easily up to the effect. Talk maybe taking ramp, then kind of drops the Legendaries to more Augustus, and that make the card very good. Changing the so maybe only once was just, which may be an okay option, and dropping the healing only heal once on its effect activation. So the end of turn, restore 3 health if those active once. So you only get 3 health, not continuing, but the body could be a problem. A lot of people discuss now is either removing Evolve stats, so it gains nothing off Evolve and it becomes 4/5, and its healing effect 2 Evolve. So they can be scrubbed from the initial, have to evolve to act healing. That's not a bad option. I mean, it kicks intact, the body doesn't get huge, and you're spending an Evolve to be as good as it was. What may Brad, I think that may be enough to bounce Dragon out, being that will make you run syibl, thus not dealing, so you have more removal to deal with other game threats, which would be the problem in Dragon. You've got huge threats, and by doing this, you would slow zero harm combos, you get other strong combos with Suckfill and Suckfill and Israfil, and any other like that. Other option I was thinking of with maybe just giving it a +1 of that instead of 2, making it a little bit syibl, but I don't think that would make sense to ability, and I don't think it will really change how fast it is right now, which could be bad, but maybe we don't know if this might work out. That's where I think this. I don't think Zeal needs much of range overall. Maybe it doesn't stats on Evolve might be good, and it can't trade into things like that. That might be a good option, but I don't think that kind of hit will be. I think the real problem card is syibl. I know a lot of people will probably disagree with this, but this whole video is personal opinion and personal ways I would fix it. If you have other ideas, definitely leave comments. I'll see what other ideas there might be, especially since we're expecting a nerf in the next 10 to 20 days. If they follow last month, we nerfed things about the 22nd month, so hopefully we will see some kind of shift. Any other problem cards, or I think pretty balanced overall, just with that line, maybe get 3 health so it can easily banish, but then that makes the card pretty much playable on that one. Other than that, Dragon doesn't really have anything else. I think if you hit this ramping effect, so it's either a lot easier to deal with, or you hit so they're not so rampy, not gonna hit you hard, would be maybe get 1, syibl is moved and lose 1, something like that, which Hearthstone is used functional to do this. But overall, I think that some of my what I did, so hopefully you guys enjoy this video and some on it. This is kind of stopped my work on others, so I wanted to do something like this. Also, I want to get into these more news-hated, meta-oriented videos, so hopefully you enjoyed it. Hit that like button and subscribe for content, and I'll catch you guys next time. See ya.